Hey guys, Mr. Mini Painter here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I painted M'Baku from Wakanda. He's one of those guys from Marvel Crisis Protocol that was a lot of fun to paint, as he's a big warlord chief, muscled, ready to go to battle. And he was actually asked by one of you guys, so if you're watching, this one's for you. I'll add you in the comments. And, well, without any further ado, let's get to painting, right? So let's get to painting this warlord. I primed them in a black primer, black undercoat. You can choose any undercoat you want, but this is mostly going to be darker colors, so black is always an easier option for me. Now we're going to be building up the skin tone with these three colors. Starting from dark, using a Rhinox hide to paint all the skin tone. And we're going to gradually build it up to the brightest color. So there's a lot of skin showing on M'Baku, and he is quite a muscular guy, so we're going to make that really work. We're going to build up the skin tone in different layers and emphasizing the muscles on this guy. Now the second layer we're going to use Catacan Flesh Tone, which is a slightly brighter brown, and I'm focusing on about 70 to 80% of the previously painted layer, and leaving those darker areas as they are supposed to be dark. This is always a good phase to add some detail to the face. Leaving those darker areas dark and just focus on smaller areas to paint your brighter tones already defines the shape of the face. So if you, for example, want to have a muscular face, focus on those cheekbones, the chin lines, etc. Next step is adding some Buckman's Glow to the Catacan Flesh Tone. So we're building up towards the color that we want to be the brightest. With each step we're decreasing the area that we paint and focusing more on the highlighted areas. So imagine where your light source is coming from and focus on that point, and make sure that the reflection of light on your miniature is the same from all angles. So if, for example, your sunlight would shine from the front, from above, then make sure that the reflection and the brightest parts on each body part come from the same light source. And that's how you're going to sell your mini. Now you can already see some shades defining here. And with the next step we're going to use pure Buckman's Glow to build it up even more, focusing on even smaller areas, so just the cheekbones, the eyebrows, the tip of the nose, top of the lip, stuff like that. And the parts where you want it to be the brightest. And the same goes for the rest of the body. So focus on the top part of those muscles on his chest, the top parts of his arm muscles. Well, you get the idea. What's always easy is to first paint the part that you want to be the brightest, you want to have the brightest, and then thin down your paint and pull towards that brightest part. That way you get a nice transition, and when you leave your tip of the brush is where it will be the brightest. Next I'm washing it with some Seraphim Sepia, just to add a little bit of extra color to the face and the rest of the body. And now make sure to let that dry before continuing, and we're going to paint in the eyes. Now as I said before, I left the eye sockets darker with the original tone, and now I'm painting in with some palette witch flesh the whites of the eyes, leaving some of those dark areas surrounding the eye, so that really makes the eye pop out. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean. Then I'm using Black Legion, or you can use Abaddon Black to paint in a pupil. And also painted the eyebrows of this guy. And I cleaned up the hair a little bit. With the hair, I gently added some Mechanica Standard Gray to some very edges just to define it a little bit more, because I wanted to have black hair, but you don't want black to be just black. You want some highlights in there as well. I went a little bit off camera here, sorry about that. Now with Mechanica Standard Gray still, I also painted the entire cloak. It's going to be an animal fur skin. We're going to add some colors later on, but the base color is going to be gray. Same goes for the fur around the boots, the gloves, and around his waist. While this is done, I'm taking some Baylor Brown and a large dry brush, and I'm painting some details all over that skin. Just picking out some color details here and there, making it look like a bit more of an animal skin, but I still want it to remain mostly gray. So I'm just slapping that on with a large dry brush, doing the same all over the previously painted layer. Now you can go a bit heavier for the cloth around the waist, it's more of a leather look I think. And in the next step, with some gray cere, I'm going to paint some light details all over the cloak. Now this is a time-consuming job, but really worth the effort. Just pick out some of those furry hairs. This also gives it sort of an edge highlight without defining hard lines. So I focused mainly on the edges, but also the insides. Of course you can do this with a dry brush if you want, but this is so much nicer. Now the inside of the cloak I painted with Doomble Brown. I then highlighted just the edges with some Gorthor Brown. A little bit of the bottom. Now we're darkening down all of the fur with some Nuln Oil. Adding a bit of black to the mix, and also really making those details pop out. Thin it down. Don't go pure, but make sure it shows. Next step, with some lead belcher, we're painting the metal details on his wrists, legs, and armor around his waist. Now the middle part of these metal things we painted before is wood, so I'm going to use a dried bark color as a skin tone, also for the plate in the middle here, the arm plates, leave that black lines as they are, and also the mask he's carrying here on his shoulder. The eyes, the area supposed to be the eyes, I made black and I left the rest more or less as it is. Then with some Baneblade Brown and a very fine tipped brush, I'm adding some wood grain here. Just pulling some very thin lines over this wood makes it a bit grainy and really resembles that wood look. Just pull some details if you can. Make sure to wipe off most of the paint off your brush, because otherwise you're gonna get thick lines. Just add some tiny details here and there. I'm doing the same with some Baylor brown as an edge highlight, so just try and retrace those previous lines to add a little bit more color, but don't go all over it. Next up, with some Doomble Brown, I'm painting the eyes area of the mask a little bit over the dried bark we painted before. I thinned down my paint so I didn't completely cover it. And I'm adding some tiny lines here as well with some Baneblade Brown. Then with some grey cere, I painted the details of the bottom of the mask. So the teeth, and it's supposed to be the bottom half of this mask painted white. I left some of that black shining through. So there's some definition between the brown and the white. There's some sort of natural shading. And next I'm painting in the blue diamond on top of the mask with some Kildor sky. I want it to look bright, like a bright diamond. I'm a bit out of focus here, sorry about that. And I'm building up the color towards a brighter variant, using some Temple Guard blue to paint the top area, so leave the bottom darker. And in the end, some white scarred tiny dot on the very top to give it a reflection. Then with some Granite Steel, I'm painting the, what is it? Metal parts dangling here around his chest and waist. I figured they would be kind of like Vibranium. Now to give that an extra glow, use some Stormhost Silver just to paint the very tips, to add a nice glow to all the metal parts we painted before. Some final details left. First, some Corn Red to add some lines here to the part on the chest, like the belt buckle, so to say. And I'm highlighting that with some Mephiston Red. Next, with some Black Legion, I'm adding some tiny details to the red part we painted before, just some separation line here in the middle. Now it's time for some gold details. I painted the rim of the armor on his arms and legs with some Auric Armor Gold. And I dry brushed that on the front of the base he is standing on. When dry brushing it remains a little bit darker, giving it that old gold look. The top I painted with some dry Reaper, also dry brushing that on. I didn't want to have a lot of color in there, but this gives it just that nice mysterious vibranium-y look. Then with some Thondia Brown I painted the base of the staff. And then with some Doomble Brown, I'm painting some tiny details on those boots here. Just in the middle, there is some fine definition. It could be laces. I tried to stipple it. I don't know if it's really visible because it's extremely tiny, but like this, just pushing a horizontal line with my brush like so. And in the end, I dry brushed the boots themselves with some Storm Vermin fur. Next I'm dry brushing some Mornfang brown on the top of the staff, the part that would be more brighter because of light reflection, leaving the bottom part a little brighter. And I'm doing the same in a final step with some XVD8. Next I'm washing it with some Agrax Earthshade, just to give it back to some of those details on the staff, mainly on the side and bottom. And once I'm done, I'm adding some Garagak Sewer to the base, mainly to make it look a bit more sandy. And that's it! And here's our final result of M'Baku. I really enjoyed painting this guy, and he is a fine addition to my Wakandan army. Now, if you like this kind of videos, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate it. And if you'd leave a comment, I would always get a reply back to you. And also consider following me on my Patreon page, as I'll be painting a lot more and different games there as well. For now, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was of any help to you guys. And if it was, please leave a comment. And I'd love to see you in one of my next videos. Bye bye!